Nobody warns you that the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are sometimes the ones keeping score. I am Elena Marsh. I am 32 years old, and 6 days before I was supposed to marry the man I had chosen with every clear-eyed, hard-won piece of myself, I discovered that my mother had accepted $40,000 from another family in exchange for ending my engagement. She hadn't told my father. She hadn't told me. She had taken the money, written a speech for my father to deliver at the altar, and arranged for the other man to be seated in the third row, close enough to watch it all unfold. 10 minutes before the ceremony, my maid of honor grabbed my wrist and said 3 words. Asterisk, don't go out there. What happened next was designed to destroy me. It didn't. I grew up in a modest split-level house on the outskirts of Clarksburg. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a rusted swing set in the backyard that my father, Gerald, never bothered to take down. He spent 30 years with the County Transit Authority. My mother, Patricia, ran the front desk at an orthodontic practice until she retired at 54 with a pension and a talent for controlling everything around her. My younger sister, Lena, arrived when I was 5, and the moment she did, the invisible ledger in our house was redrawn. I became the responsible one, the one who made side dishes at 14, the one who drove my grandmother to her dialysis appointments every Tuesday because Patricia said she was too drained, the one who babysat Lena every Friday, so my parents could have dinner alone. My mother repeated one phrase so often it became a kind of family scripture. Asterisk, you're the oldest. You set the example. Asterisk. So I did. I paid my own way through community college while working morning shifts at a diner on Route 9. I transferred to a 4-year university, graduated with a paralegal studies degree, and accepted zero financial help from anyone sitting in that living room. Today, I work in family law, custody disputes, asset division, protection orders. I bought my own townhouse 2 years ago. I owe nothing to anyone, but in my family, building something for yourself doesn't earn you admiration. It earns you more responsibilities, more holidays to manage, more silence when you need something back. I never asked Patricia for rent money. I never asked for a ride. And yet somehow I was always the one who owed. My mother runs our family the way a city manager runs a budget, quietly, decisively, and with consequences for anyone who questions the ledger. Her signature move is a single sentence delivered with the precision of a scalpel. After everything I've done for this family, she used it when I missed Easter for a filing deadline. She used it when I couldn't chauffeur Lena to a salon appointment. She used it so often that by 30, I could feel it forming before she opened her mouth. My sister Lena is 27. She lives in an apartment my mother pays for and describes herself as a content creator with roughly 3,000 followers. My mother bought her a car for her 25th birthday. She has never bought me anything without attaching a condition to it. Then there's Gerald, the ghost at the head of the table. Recliner, newspaper, 4 words whenever conflict arose. Asterisk, listen to your mother. I told myself for years that this was just how families worked, that every oldest daughter carries weight, that none of it was personal. And then I met James. James Okafor is a structural engineer. He is 34, quiet in the way that makes rooms lean toward him when he finally speaks. We met at a charity event for an urban youth initiative, and when he asked about my work, I talked for 40 minutes. He listened to every word. When I brought him home for Thanksgiving, my mother smiled with her mouth only. He seems nice, she said. That was it. And somewhere behind her eyes, something else was already moving. The warning sign came 3 years before I understood what it meant. The night I brought James to Thanksgiving dinner, I caught my mother at the kitchen table after he left, writing something on yellow legal paper. She folded it quickly and slid it into her purse. Just Christmas notes, she said. I forgot about it. I shouldn't have. The years that followed formed a pattern I could only see in hindsight. Year 1. James was left off the Christmas dinner invitation because, as Patricia put it, he's not family yet, is he? Year 2. My mother hosted a neighborhood cookout and positioned me next to a man named Caleb Stanton, polite, forgettable, and clearly placed there on purpose while James stood 6 feet away holding a plate of corn. Year 3. Patricia stopped using James's name entirely. She called him your friend. When I corrected her, she changed the subject. James never once complained. On every drive home from every strained holiday dinner, he held my hand and said nothing unkind. But I could see what it cost him in the way he exhaled when we pulled into our driveway. He proposed on the bank of Clearwater Lake at sunset. No fanfare, just a bench, a velvet box, and the version of myself I had become because of him. I said yes before he finished asking. I called Patricia that evening. 3 seconds of silence. Then, I hope you've thought this through. No congratulations. No questions about the ring. Just the hum of the refrigerator on her end, and a sentence that landed like a door being shut. 3 weeks later, Patricia called with an offer. Her voice was different, softer, measured, like someone reading from a rehearsed script. She wanted to contribute $20,000 to the wedding. I sat on the edge of my bed and blinked. She had never offered me money for anything. Not college, not my car, not when I was 22 eating ramen twice a week. I almost cried. James, when I told him, set down his glass and said quietly, * your mom has never offered you money before. Just be careful. * I waved it off. I wanted to believe she was finally coming around. I let her into the planning. Within 2 weeks, she had added 30 names to the guest list, people I had never met. I scrolled through the additions one evening and stopped at one name, Caleb Stanton plus guest. When I called to ask why, Patricia cited Carol Stanton's friendship and something about aisle access for bad knees. It made no sense, but I was drowning in vendor emails, and I let it go. 6 days before the wedding, at 11 at night, my phone lit up with a name that never called that late. Simone, my maid of honor, and James's cousin on his mother's side. We need to talk. I'll be there in 15 minutes. She arrived holding her phone like evidence, screen down, grip tight. She turned it over and told me to read. It was a screenshot from a nail salon group chat. Carol Stanton had sent a message to the wrong thread. It was addressed to my mother. Is everything ready for Saturday? Caleb is nervous. I told him once the intervention works, Elena will come around. The $40,000 was worth every penny. I read it twice. Then again, $40,000. Not the $20,000 Patricia had offered me, double that, and not from any savings account. From Carol Stanton, in exchange for my marriage. My mother had written a speech for Gerald to read at the altar. Caleb had a front row seat. 200 guests were ready to witness my humiliation. James arrived 14 minutes after I called him. He sat on the kitchen floor next to me without asking questions. I cried the kind of cry that sounds like something tearing. Then I dried my face and told him everything. He read the screenshots. He set the phone down. We are not canceling this wedding. I am a litigation paralegal. I compile evidence for a living. I organize discovery binders, label trial exhibits, prepare financial disclosures for depositions. I had done it 1,000 times for strangers. Now, I would do it once for myself. Simone helped us pull records. Carol Stanton's payment history was partially public, 2 transfers to Patricia Marsh, totaling $40,000, both memo lines reading wedding arrangement. We printed everything, the screenshots, the transaction records, the original guest list beside my mother's altered version. We sealed it in a manila envelope. Our officiant, Reverend Carla Dupree, was informed there might be an interruption. She said she would proceed the moment it ended. The 3 days between discovery and ceremony were the hardest of my life, not because of what was coming, but because I had to pretend nothing was. I sat across from Patricia at the rehearsal brunch and listened to her talk about place cards. I nodded through the florist walkthrough. I answered her calls with yes, Mom. Everything's perfect. At night, I organized documents by date and tabbed them like trial exhibits. On the morning of the wedding, standing behind that door, with Simone's hand on my arm and 200 people waiting, including the man Carol had paid to replace James, I made a choice. I walked out, not because I wasn't afraid, because I had already decided that no amount of money, no scripted speech, no arranged seat in the third row was going to write the ending of my own story. What happened at that altar is something I will carry for the rest of my life. But it was mine.